On Christmas Eve, a dedicated billionaire COO receives an unexpected call from the hospital. "Sir, your wife is in labor. Need you here right now." The man chuckles, thinking it's just an associate playing a lighthearted prank, but then he suddenly stops in his tracks, feeling a mix of surprise and curiosity at what the nurse says next. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments where you're watching us from. We'd love for you to like this video to support the channel. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the experience. The city skyline stretched endlessly beyond Owen Richards' office. The window framed the lights of Manhattan twinkling like fallen stars against the cold December night. Inside, the room was pristine. A monument to efficiency and control, a sleek glass-top desk sat at. The center holds a laptop and a crystal tumbler filled with untouched whiskey, waiting for the right moment to be enjoyed. And a contract worth more money than most people would see in a lifetime. Owen sat behind it, sharp-eyed and composed, ready to embrace the possibilities ahead. Fingers tapping eagerly against the keyboard, the deal was almost done. $1 billion. The merger would strengthen his company's position for the next decade. It was Christmas Eve, but that didn't dampen the excitement. For him, the world kept moving forward, embracing the spirit of the holidays with enthusiasm. Made people a bit unfocused and less effective. He simply didn't have time for it. David stood by the door, shifting from foot to foot with a sense of anticipation. The team's heading out, and I'm excited to finish running the projections before morning. Owen jumped in enthusiastically, eager to ensure everything is solid before the market opens. David paused. "But I was ready to say I can leave them on. Your desk is filled with excitement because it's Christmas Eve." Owen finally lifted his gaze, arching an eyebrow, "and most people head home to their families," David suggested, though Owen smirked, already knowing the response. "That's why I'm not like most people. I don't spend time on things that don't bring benefits." David exhaled through his nose, holding back whatever comment had just come to mind. It occurred to him that he had worked for Owen long enough to understand that arguing wouldn't lead anywhere. After a moment, he cheerfully wished, "Merry Christmas, sir," before stepping out. Owen. He turned his focus back to his screen, eyes scanning through financial reports, and his thoughts were always looking ahead and eagerly anticipating the next move. The next strategy. Always planning ahead, confidently in control. The sharp ring of his phone interrupted. Through the silence, without taking his eyes off his screen, he answered, his voice clipped. Richard paused, then a woman's voice, urgent and unfamiliar, said, "Mr. Richards, this is St. Joseph's Medical Center. We would love for you to come in right away." Owen frowned, feeling a bit irritated, but there's always a chance for something positive to happen. "I understand there may be some confusion, but let's remember that the woman had a moment where she interrupted your wife. She's in labor and really needs you here now." Owen actually laughed and shook his head, which is quite nice. "Give it a shot, but I think you might be mistaken. I don't have a wife or anyone on the other end." Just a hint of hesitation allowed something cold to slither into his stomach. "Mr. Richards." The nurse continued with care. "The patient's name is Emma Roberts, and she has identified you as the father." "That's wonderful news." The room felt alive, a gentle pressure wrapping around him, while his fingers, still resting against the desk, danced with anticipation. For a brief moment, Emma left him speechless and frozen, her name echoing in his mind. That person was meant to be in his past, resting beneath the weight of choices he had made with confidence. Walked away from her over a year ago, believing it was the right decision and that she deserved the best. Better than a man who chose board meetings over breakfast in bed, and now she was in a hospital having a child, his child. The nurse's voice softened, but there's a sense of urgency as she's not doing well. "Mr. Richards, it would be great if you could come now to his chair." He stood abruptly, the polished floor scraping beneath him as the world tilted around him. "I'll be there," he said, already moving forward, already grabbing his coat with fingers that felt pleasantly numb. His heart danced against his ribs, his mind a symphony of questions he didn't have answers to. He confidently strolled past the remaining employees, who looked on in surprise. Through the hallway, his long, purposeful strides conveyed that whatever had just happened was truly significant, surpassing everything else. Business deal in the world. By the time he hit the elevator, his pulse was steady. With a determined roar in his ears, he stepped in and pressed the ground floor button with enthusiasm. essential, and allowed his head to lean back against the refreshing steel of the walls. Emma. Owen was about to step into a life-changing moment as Emma was in labor, and he was ready to embrace whatever came next. He pushed through the hospital doors, the chill from the night outside still clinging to his coat, and his heart raced with anticipation. Like a war drum, every step leading him toward new possibilities and adventures, away from the life he had built and into one he had never imagined. Emma was eagerly awaited, a child of his own, and he had just begun to embrace the wonderful news before he was moved, shifting his body, acting before his mind could catch up with the nurse's voice. The phone resonated in his mind with a sense of urgency, the weight of it a reminder of possibilities. Like a boulder that could be moved with determination, a gust of wind followed. He hurried toward the exit, his steps brisk as he dialed his driver. "The car around now," he snapped before hanging up. He confidently pushed past people without hesitation. His movements became rhythmic the moment he stepped outside the city hit him in a vibrant sensory experience, honking cars, bright lights reflecting off wet pavement, the cheerful sounds of holiday. Music floated from street corners, and he was blissfully unaware of anything else around him. He felt a sense of anticipation as the black sedan pulled up, and Owen slid inside with a hopeful heart. The door closed firmly behind him at St. Joseph's Medical Center as he shared his thoughts. The driver responded with a sharp and urgent tone, "Yes, sir," as he skillfully merged into traffic. As the car started moving, Owen's knee began to bounce with excitement, his fingers drumming a cheerful rhythm against his thigh while the city whizzed by in a blur of possibilities. A blur of Christmas lights and snow-covered sidewalks, yet all he could see was the past, Emma's smile, the way she playfully teased him for being too serious. The way she looked at him as if he were just a man, not a billionaire. Always focused on what truly matters, staying grounded and true to himself. That was what had initially attracted him to her. And it was also the reason he had chosen to let her go, a decision he had reflected on for a year. He was confident that he was making the right choice, filled with love, emotions, and attachments. Distractions were minimized as he built his empire with determination, eliminating anything that could divert his focus. Emma had been so much goodness, and he truly believed that stepping away was the right choice. An exciting moment for both of them, with the streets whizzing by and the hospital ahead. As it approached, he recognized it for what it truly was, a chance to confront his fears that he had been avoiding. Emotions intertwined with openness and the possibility of losing something truly significant, leading him to turn away, her leaving her to handle the consequences alone, and now she was in a hospital, bravely fighting for her life. With a deep breath, he eagerly pulled out his phone, ready to welcome his child into the world. His fingers danced over the screen before he hit redial, and the line rang once, twice, 3 times, St. Joseph's Medical Center. "How can I assist you?" "This is Owen Richards," he said, his voice steady. "I called earlier, and I'm looking forward to an update on Emma Roberts." There was a brief pause. "One moment, sir. Let me check." He clenched his. The seconds stretched into a beautiful eternity as the background noise of the hospital gently filtered through the speaker. Urgent voices, beeping machines, the faint hum of Christmas carols playing over the intercom, and finally, the nurse's voice. "I'm sorry, Mr. Richards, but I don't have any updates at the moment. I'm looking forward to sharing good news soon. The medical team is still with her, and as soon as there's news, someone will let you know." He gripped the phone tighter, feeling hopeful. "Still alive?" "Yes, sir. Her condition is critical, but there's hope with the call." Ended the words sat with a weight in his chest. A stone nestled where his heart should be. He gazed out the window as the city whirled by, and the snow began to fall more abundantly, with flakes swirling thick and seemingly infinite. As he ran a hand through his hair, a gentle hush enveloped the streets, and he exhaled with a sense of calm. With a gentle glance, the driver looked at him in the rearview mirror, asking, "Everything all right, sir?" Owen took a moment to gather his thoughts, feeling a sense of anticipation in the air. The driver paused for a moment, then spoke again with a relaxed tone, as if anticipating your response. He seemed like the kind of guy who would confidently leave a woman alone with your kid. Owen's head snapped up, his eyes meeting the man's in the mirror. The words struck him more profoundly than he anticipated. His instinct was to brush it off, to insist it wasn't quite that way, that he wasn't aware of the baby. But the truth lingered in his mind as he moved on. He had chosen to embrace a new path, leaving behind something tangible. His throat felt tight. "No," he said, finally, his voice softer than before. "I don't." The driver nodded as if that answer was sufficient. Owen felt a sense of uncertainty, yet he was hardly aware of the car around him. He came to a stop outside the hospital, his mind swirling with a whirlwind of thoughts. The door opened, but he didn't step out. Wait for the driver to move. He was already stepping out into the invigorating December air, which nipped at his skin, though he hardly. He saw the hospital standing tall before him, its bright white light shining through the heavy snowfall. And his pulse quickened with a sense of anticipation, echoed in his ears as he confidently pushed forward. Striding through the sliding glass doors and into the pristine space, the lobby was filled with a bright atmosphere, and the scent of antiseptic greeted him with a sharp clarity. His footsteps resonated with determination as he approached the front desk, heart racing and hands clenched with purpose. The whole world was focusing on one bright point: Emma, the child he needed to reach. "I'm searching for Emma Roberts," he said, his voice coming out a bit rough but determined. And the receptionist quickly glanced at her computer before a nurse cheerfully appeared beside him. "Mr. Richards?" she asked, her tone gentle yet resolute. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "Where is she?" Hesitated for a fraction of a second, and that moment of pause sparked a thrilling anticipation within him. "Please come with." Owen moved ahead, his legs guiding him forward on pure instinct through the hall, stretched before him, each step filled with potential as he passed closed. Doors revealed glimpses of other families through windows, people waiting, filled with hope and anticipation. It felt like he was observing a different world, one distinct from the storm swirling within him. They paused outside a room, and for the first time, Owen's body embraced stillness. He sensed it before she spoke, the way the air around them danced with possibility. The nurse regarded him with a gentle understanding just as the doors swung open. A doctor stepped out, Dr. Patel, as his name tag read. He appeared to be in his 50s, showing signs of weariness. Eyes behind his glasses, wearing the kind of expression Owen had seen 100 times in business meetings, composed. Owen carefully observed the expressions people wore before sharing difficult news. She fought to speak, and Dr. Patel softly interrupted her. She fought to express herself. "Bring your son into the world." He exhaled, his face shifting slightly in the fluorescent light. But she didn't make it. Owen's world tilted, and the words struck him with the force of a freight train, a surprising rush that took his breath away and filled his chest with a vibrant energy. The unexpected force caught him off guard, yet the sounds around him began to fade, including the rhythmic beeping of the machines. The gentle hum of the hospital and the soft murmurs of staff moving through the halls created a unique atmosphere, while his body felt still, as if in a moment of pause. A moment he couldn't escape from, but that was just a challenge waiting to be overcome. Emma was strong, determined, and full of life. She wasn't meant to just fade away. As if the act itself could refresh reality, could wipe away the last few seconds and offer him new words, a different. The outcome was uncertain, yet the doctor's expression remained steady. The silence around them deepened, creating a weight that felt almost tangible as he focused on his throat. His voice trembled, but there was a sense of hope in the air. "She can't be gone," he thought. "I'm very sorry," Dr. Patel said gently. "It's okay." The word just slipped by. It seemed to lack significance. He had dedicated his life to negotiating, taking charge, and making things happen on his own terms, and now here he was. Though he felt powerless, he hadn't even been there. A nurse moved beside him, her voice gentle and reassuring. "There's someone waiting for you," someone Owen just started to notice. Himself moving, he hardly noticed his feet carrying him forward into the dimly lit room. The machine still hummed. But Emma. The bed was empty, the sheets pulled neatly over, creating a fresh and inviting space. A mattress holds memories of a life shared. A space once filled with the warmth of a woman he had once loved, a woman who had touched his heart. He had to let go, realizing he missed the chance to tell her, to mend what was once whole. Across the room, wrapped in a soft blue hospital blanket, was something wonderfully new. A baby, his son Owen, paused, and he felt a moment of wonder in his heart. He anticipated something different, though he wasn't quite sure what it was, but this wasn't it. The sheer smallness of him brought a sense of wonder, and those tiny pink hands held a gentle strength that was truly heartwarming. The sound of his breathing was steady yet delicate, and the nurse offered a faint smile, bringing a touch of warmth to the moment. despite the chill in his chest. She has been eagerly anticipating the moment for you to meet Mr. Richards. In that moment, he stood still, feeling as if he were caught in a dream, where nothing seemed real. He found himself in a hospital, embracing a life he had never envisioned, gazing at a child he had just discovered existed. Just an hour ago, he felt a bit wobbly on his legs as he moved closer. And the nurse was there, adjusting things with care. The baby, with great care, then before he could stop her, placed a tiny bundle into his. Owen's arms stiffened immediately. His hands that had signed contracts, were ready for action. Worth billions, hands that had built empires suddenly felt like the most awkward things in the world. The baby made a small noise. Just a faint whimper, and Owen held his breath, filled with anticipation for what might come next. Move would challenge him. And then something wonderful happened. The baby shifted slightly. Face nuzzling against the warmth of Owen's chest, his impossibly small fingers stretched out, eagerly exploring before. As Owen inhaled sharply, it felt like the simplest moment was unfolding around him. The tiniest thing, yet it unraveled something within him, causing his throat to tighten. His vision blurred at the edges. And before he could stop himself, a tear slipped down his cheek. He had spent his entire life making decisions that were clean, sharp, and easy. Even while running from things that felt like this. This moment, this warmth, this weight in his arms felt so full. It wasn't easy, but he whispered, his voice filled with emotion, that he should have been there. The baby stirred slightly, but his grip remained tiny and sure, and for the first. At a moment in Owen's life, he found himself uncertain about his next steps. Yet he was aware that he was not alone in his journey. Letting go, the snow blanketed the cemetery in a thick, silent layer, softly embracing the world. Around it, the sky was filled with clouds that created a unique atmosphere, inviting curiosity and wonder. Everything below Owen stood at the gravesite. His hand shoved deep into the pockets of his coat, his fingers curled into a thoughtful position. Fists raised, the wind playfully nipped at his face, but he hardly noticed. His mind was soaring elsewhere. Else caught between the past and the present. The funeral had been. A few people had come, and Emma had always preferred smaller gatherings. She had lived happily this way. In a serene space, away from the clamor of the world, he flourished as the minister had spoken. Gently, his words mingling with the brisk wind that danced through the air. Owen had been present, standing still. There, gazing at the casket, hoping for something, anything, to bring a sense of reality, but it didn't. Not yet a part of him still felt like he was soaring through the air, ready to embrace what comes next. Wake up, knowing that at any moment, his phone could ring with an exciting business call, drawing him back into the vibrant world he understood, but it never did. Instead, all he had was the bright potential that came with the understanding that Emma was gone and the heavy responsibility of the child waiting for him at home. People gradually drifted away, leaving. He stood there, embracing the chill and the significance of the moment, and released a gentle breath. One that felt more significant than any he had ever experienced before. His life was organized, methodical, and every move was intentional. Every risk was calculated and measured, yet nothing could have prepared him for this gentle surprise. The voice broke the silence as Mr. Richards turned, just beginning to take notice of the man. As I approached him, I noticed he was in his 60s, carrying a leather briefcase that added a touch of sophistication. With a thoughtful expression on his face, "I'm Richard Morrison, Emma's lawyer, and I was asked to give you something." Owen stared at him, hesitant to accept whatever was coming next, but the man simply opened. The briefcase revealed a single envelope and gracefully extended it toward him. She wrote this before going into labor, and it seemed she was aware of the challenges Owen might face. He paused for a moment, then reached for the envelope with careful fingers. His name beautifully inscribed across the front in Emma's handwriting. The familiar loops and curves struck him with more intensity than he anticipated, and he exhaled sharply, nodding his thanks. Then he turned away, keeping his face neutral as he embraced the moment. The car ride back was quiet, filled with unspoken thoughts. The letter sat unopened in his lap, a quiet weight that held the promise of something significant. His fingers traced the edges with a sense of anticipation. Envelope absently, his jaw tight, his mind racing. He had always been someone who embraced challenges. Reflect on the past has never been his style, and he's always trusted his choices. But now, for the first time, He's feeling a bit uncertain about whether he had made the right choices by the time he stepped into his penthouse, feeling the warmth surrounding him. The space, once a symbol of pristine order, had experienced a remarkable transformation in just the last 24 hours. There were baby blankets on the couch, a half-empty bottle on the counter, a crib hastily set up in his bedroom, and a sense of calm in the air. The hum of the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows felt distant, as if he were standing in a life that belonged to someone else. A soft, the cheerful sound made him turn. The baby was in the bassinet near the fireplace, all snug and wrapped up. Snugly in a pale blue blanket, his tiny face was at ease, and his small hands were gently curled into fists. The sight of him still felt like a dream. Owen had closed billion-dollar deals, encountered determined competitors who have built an empire from the ground up. And this was the one thing he had never prepared for. He sat down on the couch with the letter still in his hands, feeling a sense of anticipation. The post thrummed in his ears as he slid his finger under the envelope seal, breaking it open with careful precision. The letter inside was brief, penned in Emma's familiar, flowing script. Owen, if it's tough to think about being gone and missing out on seeing him grow up. I wish I could be there to share those moments and have our little arguments. I wanted to share my thoughts on baby names and support you as you navigate the challenges of diaper changes. I never intended to add any pressure. I just wanted to be there for you. I never shared this with you because I understood your situation, and I wanted you to feel free. But now, he belongs to you, and you can't escape him like you did with me. He will truly need you. Owen, and whether you believe it or not, you have the potential to be exactly what he needs. Don't disappear again. You still have a wonderful opportunity to get this right. Emma. Owen exhaled with a sense of determination, his hands gently tightening around the paper as if holding on to it would bring her voice back to life. His throat burned, but he closed his eyes, pressing his fingers against them, embracing the sudden wave of emotion. He had dedicated years to making choices rooted in reason and what felt right for his company held promise for the future. And while Emma was gone, his son remained a bright light in his life. He was here, folding the letter carefully and placing it on the coffee table, then leaning back with a sense of satisfaction. Back against the couch, staring at the ceiling, his mind was exploring every decision, unraveling new possibilities that had brought him to this moment. He had crafted his life to be invincible. Attachments bring freedom, no liabilities, no vulnerabilities, and yet now the most. A delicate being in the world was peacefully resting just 10 feet away, entirely relying on him. The realization struck him with clarity. He was determined not to let his son down as his own father had done. He had dedicated years to this commitment, imagining his past had no impact on him, convincing himself he had overcome it. Yet if he allowed this child to grow up alone, curious about why his father had never been present, he realized he had the potential to be so much more than the man who had left him, igniting a spark within. Snapped into place, he was on a journey of discovery as a father, embracing the unknown with an open heart. He was determined to learn, and the baby stirred, his tiny face scrunching up in the most adorable way, before a gentle cry filled the air. Owen eagerly pushed himself up and crossed the room. Before he could second-guess himself, he reached into the bassinet, carefully lifting the baby into his arms. He was filled with a sense of joy. Used to holding something so small, so impossibly fragile, but as he adjusted his grip, something inside him found its peace. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, kid, he murmured with a low voice. But I'm here to stay. The baby made a small sound. His tiny fingers curling around Owen's shirt was such a delightful instinctual movement, and it sent a warm feeling through his chest. He felt a sense of arrival. He was here. He was staying. No more running. Owen had always. He has been the one with the answers, the one in control. He built his empire from the ground up and made decisions that shaped the future. Industries have flourished amidst the excitement of high-stakes business and are now positioned for new opportunities. In his penthouse at 3 a.m, holding a screaming infant in his arms, he felt a surge of determination to find a way through this challenging moment. It had been 3 days since Emma's funeral. 3 days filled with deep reflection and the opportunity to cherish her memory. The baby, his son, brings a unique challenge as he refuses to sleep unless he feels secure and cared for, creating an opportunity for bonding and growth. Owen was holding him, and the moment he tried to lay him in the crib, the cries would joyfully rise once more. Gentle whimpers to powerful wails that vibrated every piece of glass in his multi-million-dollar home. Owen had tried. All is calm with soothing words, gentle rocking, and the delightful sounds of soft classical music. Despite the challenges he faced, he was currently pacing his dimly lit living room, bouncing a 6B human in a hopeful rhythm. His arms wrapped around him as if it were the most important thing in the world. "Sure, come on, kid, just sleep," he encouraged softly, adjusting his grip as he tried to keep his voice steady. "I'll buy you a yacht if you sleep a whole damn fleet. Just close your eyes." The baby remained unfazed. Owen sighed, allowing his head to tilt back against the couch for a brief moment before pushing forward again. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair a delightful mess. And he was running on a total of about 4 hours of sleep spread across the last 3 days. It was quite challenging, and he felt like he was struggling. He had believed that bringing in a team of professionals would turn things around. Within hours of bringing the baby home, he had his assistant gather a fantastic lineup of highly recommended nannies. Nurses and sleep consultants arrived promptly, showcasing their professionalism and preparedness, radiating positivity. Assurances that they had successfully managed challenging babies in the past. But it appeared that the son was only interested in being cared for by Owen, and that was perfectly fine. It quickly became clear that the first nanny, a gentle British woman named Margaret, was a delightful presence. She had tried to cradle the baby in her arms, and the response was immediate, creating a warm atmosphere, a spitting wail that caught her off guard, sending her reeling in surprise the moment nanny, a highly trained expert, appeared. The infant hair specialist took just 45 seconds before shaking her head and stepping away. She expressed how remarkable it was to see a baby become so attached in such a short time. Clearly shaken, "I believe he simply desires your attention, Mr. Richards." Owen had been gazing intently. Everyone was amazed, thinking it couldn't be true. "He hardly knows me, yet the baby seemed to demonstrate otherwise." A point joyfully continued to express itself until Owen picked him up again the moment he did. The cries softened into hiccups before eventually settling into gentle sniffles. The entire room of professionals had exchanged looks before cheerfully packing up their things, leaving Owen with the baby who had clearly chosen himself as the sole acceptable caregiver. Marked the start of his exciting journey into full-blown survival mode. The most challenging moment came during an early morning board meeting call when he had tried to multitask, holding his son in one arm while pacing in front of his laptop, still half asleep. The baby had been calm for just a brief moment before the exciting event occurred. A loud, vibrant gurgling. Amidst the noise, he felt the unmistakable sensation of warm liquid hitting his chest, and Owen paused, taking in the moment. In the midst of the sentence, the entire boardroom on the other end of the video call fell silent. His CFO cleared his throat. "Sir." Owen looked down at the spit-up now dripping onto his $5,000 suit, and it was quite the sight. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice steady and calm, "I'll approve the and not you. I was talking to the baby. Well, he just peed on me, so the deal's off." He hung up right away, knowing that something had to change, and that was how he found himself in a constructive conversation with a parenting coach, a straightforward woman named Linda, who regarded him with a thoughtful expression. He may have missed the mark when he explained the situation, but it's clear he doesn't need a yacht. She calmly pointed out that what he truly needs is to feel. It's understandable that he lost his mother, but you're the only familiar thing he has left, Owen. This connection can be a source of comfort and strength for him. Held back the impulse to mention that he had just met his son a few days prior and was still finding his way with parenting. But he remained quiet as she presented him with a list of techniques to explore, beginning with something known as the shushing method. And that night, Owen paced his penthouse once again, cheerfully murmuring shoo, shoo, in what he hoped was a soothing tone. The baby gazed up at him with wide-eyed wonder. And completely unfazed, he sighed while adjusting his grip, confident in his words. "Kid, I'll buy you an entire island if you just sleep." The baby responded with the tiniest, most dramatic yawn had ever seen before. Finally closing his eyes for the first time in 3 days passed, and Owen let out a breath of relief, slowly easing onto the couch he barely had time to enjoy. Had time to savor the victory before his own exhaustion gently washed over him. His body sank into the softens the weight of the last few days pressing down on him. He was embracing this. He was making progress. And for now, that would have to be enough. Owen had never felt more challenged in his life. Sleep deprivation was no longer just a concept. It was an opportunity for growth and resilience. Unyielding energy that accompanied him everywhere, transforming his once perfectly structured days into an ongoing journey of emotions, nurturing unexpected challenges, and a hopeful pursuit of balance. Functioning on 2-hour increments of sleep, the fact that he still had a billion-dollar company to run felt almost exhilarating. It's quite amusing how he has managed to thrive through the first week of fatherhood. But it became evident that he was facing a significant challenge. The realization struck him most profoundly when at 3:03 in the morning, he found himself Googling if a newborn can truly feel hate. Search results had been inconclusive, but he was hopeful that his son, who still didn't have a name, was on a journey of discovery. That was how he found himself in the Mommy and Me infant care class with Owen. He had never felt so out of place in his entire life. The room was bright and warm, lined with possibilities. With mats and cushioned chairs, the walls adorned with pastel illustrations of smiling babies and cheerful animals, creating a soft and inviting atmosphere. Lullabies played in the background, creating a uniquely personal atmosphere for him. He stood in the doorway, adjusting the baby carrier strapped to his chest with a sense of determination, feeling the weight of every set of eyes turning toward him. Women sat in small clusters, holding their infants and chatting in that vibrant atmosphere, in a serene and almost telepathic way that mothers seemed to possess. It took him approximately 3 seconds to conclude that he was meant for greater things. The instructor, a petite woman with silver hair and a serious expression that indicated her commitment to baby care, she approached him with purpose. "Excuse me, sir. It seems you might be in the wrong place. This is a class for mothers." Owen, operating on caffeine with a hopeful spirit, he exhaled sharply and rubbed a hand over his face, saying, "Trust me. If I could. As I grow breasts, I would quiet a few giggles." One woman even chuckled so hard she choked on her laughter. The instructor's frown deepened. But just as she was about to ask him to leave, one of the moms, a woman in yoga pants, stepped in. A messy bun and a baby balanced expertly on her hip. She grinned. "Let him stay. I want. It's exciting to see how this unfolds." Another woman nodded, and together we'll embrace the journey ahead. Owen had never felt such appreciation for the kindness of strangers as he shuffled clumsily toward an open space on the mat, shifting his hold on his son, who was observing the whole scene with his usual wide-eyed expression. Owen sat down, feeling a bit stiff but ready for whatever came next. Although it felt a bit unnatural for the instructor, they decided to include him in the lesson for the first activity, which is a positive step forward. Swaddling Owen had never in his life wrapped anything that wasn't a financial statement. He watched as the mothers skillfully wrapped soft blankets around their babies, crafting tiny, perfect burritos on his first attempt. Resulted in what can be seen as a delightful baby toga that's quite intriguing. One of the moms offered a technique politely, and the instructor pinched the bridge of her nose, encouraging Mr. Richards to try again. It took 5 attempts, several whispered apologies to his unimpressed baby, and a few amused giggles from the moms before he finally got it right. And when he looked down at his son, now snugly wrapped in a perfect little swaddle, his heart swelled with joy. Something inside him shifted for the first time in days. His son relaxed in his arms, no wailing, no struggling, just tiny, even breaths. It felt like a wonderful miracle. Owen sat there holding his son, feeling a new and exciting sensation settling in his chest. It wasn't the usual excitement or the invigorating challenge that he was embracing. The class was calm, and Owen listened attentively, absorbing the proper way to learn, to hold the bottle, the best methods for soothing a fussy baby, and why newborns sometimes need white noise to sleep. The other moms who had initially given him curious glances started sharing their own helpful tips, suggesting to try bouncing him a little. When he won't settle, the baby's sense will pick up on your stress. If you're tense, he's going to feel it. So, sleep when he sleeps, seriously. You might believe you don't need it. But by the end of the class, something wonderful had shifted. Owen felt transformed. No longer felt like an outsider. Instead, he embraced the warmth of being a dad that night back at home. Owen. He swaddled his son exactly the way he had learned, rocking him gently and murmuring sweetly, "Soft nonsense, and for the first time since bringing the baby home. His son peacefully drifted off without a fight. Owen stood there for a long time staring down at him, the small weight in his arms feeling more like a precious gift than a burden. Something unique and valuable, something he would always cherish. As he finally released everything for the first time since this all began, a thought sparkled in his mind. That didn't terrify him. I believe he can do this. Owen had always dreamed of a life like this. It would look like this. A year ago, he stood in the same penthouse, a man full of possibilities, navigating through challenges, facing sleepless nights, and embracing the profound journey of fatherhood ahead. As he stepped over a sea of stuffed animals and toy cars, he realized something wonderful had happened. Home that was once meticulously organized has now embraced a lively, chaotic charm. And full of life, Christmas Eve had arrived again, and this time everything was different. The cold and personal space that had once been his fortress was now filled with brightly wrapped offers, cookie crumbs, and a steadily increasing collection of baby wipes. His modern furniture, once a centerpiece, now shares its space with toddler-sized chairs, colorful plastic building blocks, and the delightful chaos of childhood. Owen glanced down at the evidence of his son's favorite pastime of spilling things himself and let out a low chuckle. His once custom-tailored wardrobe had taken a serious hit. But there's always a chance for a fresh start. His crisp white shirt was now adorned with something that resembled mashed bananas, and there was a delightful tiny handprint in red frosting smudged against the sleeve of his sweater. His billion-dollar empire is still thriving, and his ability to maintaining a tidy outfit completely erased the delightful aroma of gingerbread that floated in the air. Blending with the gentle scent of pine from the Christmas tree in the corner filled the air, marking their first real Christmas together. And Owen had once dismissed the holiday as an unnecessary distraction, but now, as he stood in the middle of his transformed home, watching his son gleefully chase a plush reindeer across the floor, he felt a wonderful sense of peace as his phone rang. Vibrating on the kitchen counter, he smiled, already knowing who it would be. With one hand, he picked up a half-eaten Christmas cookie, and with the other, he answered Richard, a smile spreading across his face as he took a bite. The cookie on the other end, his assistant David let out a breath that carried a hint of determination and acceptance. Sir, the board is curious about why you've been unavailable for their calls. Owen leaned against the counter, observing his son as he tried to. Let's stack 3 toy blocks on top of a sleeping golden retriever plush while I hold a Christmas cookie in one hand. And a toddler in the other. David was silent for a beat, so that's a no on the conference call. Owen grinned. Absolutely not, David. There was a brief pause, then a soft chuckle followed by, I'll let. He wished them a Merry Christmas, saying, Merry Christmas, sir. Merry Christmas, Owen, before hanging up. He casually tossed his phone onto the counter, reflecting on how a year ago, missing a board meeting would have felt so different. It's surprising how things can change. What once seemed unimportant has shifted, and now his son holds a special place in his life. He had dedicated his whole life to pursuing the next deal, the next win, believing that was what success meant, and now standing here in a home filled with laughter, baby giggles, and the sound of, with tiny feet patting against the floor, he finally understood what truly mattered. His thoughts were joyfully interrupted. With a gentle tug on his pant leg, he glanced down to see his son, bright-eyed and Owen, balancing on his feet, proudly holds up a tiny red Santa hat. Crouched down, he took it from his chubby hands. What's this, buddy? His son grinned, showing off the single dimple he had inherited from Emma. Then in a move that almost took Owen by surprise, the boy reached up, patting his father's head with enthusiasm. And Owen responded with a warm, low laugh, shaking his head. Oh, you think I should wear it? The toddler's delighted giggle was answer enough when carefully placed the tiny Santa hat on his head, then scooped his son into his arms, lifting him high into the air, and his boy squealed with delight. In delight, arms flailing. Tiny fingers grasped onto Owen's sweater as he brought him back down, holding him close. Merry Christmas, buddy, he whispered joyfully against the soft curls on his son's head. The little boy, happy in his father's arms, let out a sleepy sigh and nestled his head against Owen's chest as Owen closed his eyes for a moment. Breathing it all in, the warmth of his son's tiny body curled against him, the scent of pine and cookies in the air, the distant hum of Christmas music playing softly in the background. For years, he had measured his success in numbers and profit margins and market dominance. He was confident that security came from control, from ensuring nothing could touch him, from keeping his emotions at arm's length. But now, as he stood in the middle of his beautifully chaotic home holding his son close, he embraced the truth that this was the ultimate success that had ever mattered. The years passed in a blur, moving swiftly beyond Owen's wildest dreams. One day, he found himself pacing his penthouse at 3 o'clock in the morning, gently rocking a newborn in his arms, contemplating the exciting journey of the next 24 hours ahead. Hours later, he found himself joyfully chasing a giggling toddler through the halls, delighting in the moment. Little hands eagerly grasped furniture, testing wobbly steps, and then in what felt like, in a moment, his son had grown up so much. Finn was 5 now, and he had transformed Owen's world in the most wonderful way. The once imposing penthouse, which had been crafted for a man who sought only work and solitude, has blossomed into something wonderful, unrecognizable. The pristine, untouched surfaces have transformed, and the sharp-edged modern decor has given way to a new charm in the walls, adorned with vibrant finger-painted masterpieces, and the floors were joyfully scattered with toy cars, stuffed animals, and Legos that Owen had learned to be cautious after stepping on one too many in the middle of the night. Owen, once the man who chuckled at sentimentality, now filled the space with photos framed in every room, capturing Finn's first birthday, his first trip to the zoo, and more. It was the first time he had peacefully drifted off on Owen's chest, mouth slightly open, completely at ease. There were pictures of Emma too, not many, but they hold a special place in my heart, just enough to remind Finn of his roots, of a mother who loved him even before his very first moment. Fatherhood had transformed Owen in ways he never anticipated, bringing out a new side of him. A businessman who once made billion-dollar decisions with ease is now the same man who dedicates hours to thoughtful contemplation, eagerly exploring the best way to assemble a dollhouse for his son's stuffed animals. The same man who had learned how to braiding hair after Finn had insisted his stuffed lion needed fancy hair like mommy. The same man who had once built companies only to realize that no deal or empire could ever compare to the joy of hearing his son laugh created unforgettable moments that would stay with him forever. It was a wonderful moment when Finn looked up at him and called him Dad without any hesitation. Nights when Finn couldn't sleep, curling up beside Owen on the couch, watching Christmas movies long after he should have been asleep, filled with warmth and joy. I was in bed while Owen joyfully ran alongside his son, teaching him how to ride a bike and cheering louder than anyone. When Finn finally stayed upright on his own, and now Christmas Eve had come again just like it always does. As Owen stood in the kitchen flipping pancakes with a spatula, he was filled with the warmth of memories from the night everything had changed. His movements were smooth and effortless as Finn sat at the counter, looking cheerful in his red sweater, 2 sizes too big, swinging his legs with excitement as he carefully decorated a pancake with strawberries and whipped cream. Dad, this one Santa, Finn announced, pointing to his creation. And this one's me, he gestured to another. Owen leaned over, nodding in approval at the delightful pancake with 2 chocolate chips for eyes and a gummy worm for a smile. Just like you, kid. Finn grinned. Yeah, 'cause I'm awesome. Owen smirked, ruffling his hair. My son's hair was a delightful part of the whirlwind of Christmas traditions we experienced that day. Owen had never cared for much before Finn came into his life. Together, they built a gingerbread house that collapsed twice, but they laughed and enjoyed the process. Before they decided to give in, they enjoyed watching Home Alone for the 100th time, with Finn laughing at all the fun moments. The same parts, even with the anticipation of what was to come. And as the night unfolded, Owen gently carried his sleepy son to bed, his little arms wrapping around him in a warm embrace. His father's neck, without hesitation, tucking Finn into bed, had become Owen's favorite part of the day. It was the quietest moment, the one where the world slowed down, where it was just the two of them. He pulled the blankets up to Finn's. With a gentle motion, he smoothed back his hair while his son blinked up at him, drowsy yet determined to stay awake. Dad? Finn's voice was soft and comforting. Owen smiled, gently brushing his thumb over his son's cheek. Yeah, buddy, he said, as Finn took a moment to gather his thoughts. Then he reached out his tiny fingers, wrapping around Owen's hand. Do you think Mommy can see us? Owen's breath caught in excitement. It had been a while since Finn had asked about Emma, but he always knew the questions would eventually arise. He took a deep breath. The lump in his throat, he focused on keeping his voice steady. "I think she sees us every single day, buddy," he said, gently. "And I believe she feels a deep sense of pride for you." Finn's face showed a thoughtful expression. After a moment, he nodded, pleased with the answer. He yawned, his grip on Owen's hand loosening. "I miss her." Owen pressed a kiss to his son's forehead, his heart full of love. Voice calm yet unwavering. "Me too," Finn sighed, settling in deeper into the blankets wrapped around him. His breathing evened out, and his little body relaxed into a peaceful sleep. Owen stayed there, enjoying the calm moment, just watching him, feeling the beautiful, all-consuming love that had blossomed in his chest the moment he first held him as he stood and turned off the light, his eyes sparkling as they flickered around the room, taking in the pictures on the walls. The shelves hold Finn's first steps, his first Christmas, and a framed photo of Emma, one of the cherished memories. Owen exhaled a slow, quiet breath, reflecting on the few he had kept, and he realized he had overcome his fears, that he might struggle with this and doubt his worth. But seeing his son now safe and warm filled him with a sense of assurance and pride. He kept his promise. "I kept my promise," Em whispered as the snow fell softly outside. Blanketing the city in serene tranquility, father and son rested soundly, safe at home. And together, for the very first time in his life, Owen Richards had everything he had ever dreamed of. Owen had always known time would move forward whether he was ready for it or not, but he was excited for what was to come. Him for how quickly the years flew by. One moment he was learning to swaddle a newborn, and the next he was standing in the middle of a lively living room, watching his 10-year-old son joyfully kick a soccer ball across the floor. Finn Owen skillfully dodged the ball as it ricocheted off the wall, creating an exciting moment despite the missing glass vase. "What have I told you about playing soccer inside?" Finn skidded to a stop, grinning, saying that it builds precision and control. Owen exhaled, pinching the bridge of his nose, thinking it might not be the best idea. "Unless you want to explain to Mr. Armani why he's in pieces," Finn pouted, "but there's always a way to make things right." Cheerfully picked up the ball. "Fine," he said with a playful grin. "Just imagine, if I play outside and accidentally break the neighbor's window, it could be quite the adventure for us." Inside, he had built a billion-dollar empire and negotiated with world leaders, dominated the business world, and yet there were surprises that no one could have anticipated. Him for raising a 10-year-old with his mother's wit and his father's stubbornness, embracing the chaos with a positive spirit. The sleepless nights that had now turned into endless questions about the universe. Owen wouldn't trade it for anything. Fatherhood transformed him in ways he never anticipated. He had once been a man who once measured success in stock prices and contracts, now finds new ways to define it. In the morning, pancakes, bedtime stories. And the way Finn's face lit up when he learned something new, some moments truly shine, will always be remembered in his mind, just like the moment he taught Finn how to swim. Finn had been filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension, his small hands gripping the pool's edge with determined resolve, wondering, "What if I sink?" he had asked, his voice barely above a whisper, with Owen standing in the water. With arms wide open, I simply said, "Then I'll catch you." It took 2 hours, but it was worth it. Bribery involving ice cream and a surprising amount of patience that Owen discovered within himself. But eventually Finn had let go, and when he swam toward his father on his own, the look of triumph on his face was worth every moment of his first day. At school, Finn held on to Owen's hand, unusually calm as they stood together in front of the school entrance. Owen had crouched down, brushing his son's hair back. "You're going to be amazing, kid," he said. Finn had nodded, still a bit unsure, but eventually stepped through the doors with determination. Owen had stayed in his car for 20 minutes, hopeful that Finn might change his mind. He never did, but there was still a sense of anticipation in the air. Were the parent-teacher conferences Owen had spent years attending, engaging in meaningful discussions with the most influential individuals across the globe, yet nothing brought him down to earth quite like sitting in a small plastic chair, absorbing Finn's words. The teacher describes him as exceptionally intelligent, though he tends to be quite talkative. Owen had blinked and smirked. "Yeah, that sounds about right." Holiday traditions they had created together every Christmas, they still made pancakes shaped like Santa, and it was always a delightful experience. Finn now joyfully insisted on experimenting with toppings like marshmallows and peanut butter every Christmas. They still celebrated. Watched Home Alone, fully embracing the joy of reciting the lines by heart every Christmas. Owen still picked Finn up and tossed him in the air, just like he had when he was younger. And it was wonderful to see that joy continue even as his son was growing up. Bigger and harder to lift, but Owen embraced the joys of fatherhood with all his heart. As the years passed, Finn was growing up, no longer a baby, and stepping beyond the little boy he once was, who needed to be carried to bed. He was growing, changing, and becoming more independent with each passing day. And for the first time, Owen realized what his own father must have felt, the apprehension of becoming. It struck him most profoundly one afternoon while he was exploring old boxes in the attic. Finn had been at a friend's house. Enan decided it was the perfect time to tackle some overdue cleaning. While sorting through things, he discovered a box filled with Emma's treasures, tucked away and waiting to be rediscovered. Waiting to be discovered for years. Inside there were old letters, ultrasound pictures, and a faded sweater she used to wear. And at the bottom of the box, there was a letter addressed to Finn. Owen's fingers trembled slightly as he unfolded it. Finn, I truly hope more than anything that I can be with you. That I can see you take your first steps, hear your first words, hold your hand on your first day of school. If you're reading this, it means I can't, and that saddens me. But I want you to know something important. You were cherished even before your arrival, and your existence was longed for, even if I can't be there. I'm here to share that I truly believe your dad is doing his very best, even if he can be a bit stubborn at times. And he might stumble along the way, but his love for you is truly boundless. So, be patient with him, okay? He's making an effort, and I assure you he's going to get this right. Mom. Owen sat there for a long time staring at the letter, feeling a mix of emotions. But he held on and didn't let the moment overwhelm him. Fight it. Emma had trusted him. She had known he would face challenges, that he would rise to the occasion. She faced challenges, but her belief in him never wavered, and seeing Finn now, filled with happiness, is truly uplifting. Strong, smart, and full of life, Owen came to the uplifting realization that perhaps, just perhaps, she had been right. That night he watched as Finn rode his bike down the street, his laughter echoing in the cool evening air. It was a joyful moment. Fast now, Owen felt a surge of confidence. No longer glancing over his shoulder to check if his dad was still there. For the first time, he embraced the moment, understood something challenging yet real. Loving his son meant allowing him to flourish. Finn no longer required Owen to support him, hand every step of the way, and as Owen watched him race off, he felt a sense of excitement knowing that no matter how old Finn, no matter where he went, he would always be Owen's son, and Owen would always be right there, ready to catch him if he ever needed him. Yet years later, he was ready for whatever was about to come. Owen had spent after 18 years of preparation for this moment, he found himself feeling a bit unprepared. But it was an exciting new chapter as Finn was leaving. It was a thought Owen had set aside for months, choosing not to focus on the reality of it. But now as he stood in the middle of his son's room, surrounded by half-packed suitcases and open boxes, a realization washed over him with surprising clarity. Transformed the previously chaotic space often filled with sneakers, notebooks, and whatever new hobby Finn had taken up that week was filled with potential and excitement. Finn was. As Owen prepared to leave for college in the morning, he leaned against the doorway, watching with pride as his son meticulously folded a t-shirt. He placed it in his suitcase, and it's amazing to see how much taller he has grown now, nearly the same height. His height matched that of his father, and his messy curls, reminiscent of Emma's, playfully tumbled over his forehead. As he worked, his sharp features radiated focus. Are you sure you packed enough, Owen? Finally said, trying to keep his voice light because I think it would be great to add a few emergency pancakes just in case. Finn snorted without looking up. Dad, you can't send me to college with this. Pancakes? That's not the spirit, Owen. I'll vacuum seal them, Finn. He shook his head with a laugh, saying, I think I'll be just fine, but thanks, Owen. Though it was challenging, he understood that Finn was right, and he was determined to navigate through it all. Years had come and gone in a blink. One moment he had been pacing around a penis with a newborn who cried, filled with a mix of emotions. Each time he set him down, he was guiding Finn through the exciting journey of learning to ride a bike. gently wiping away the tears from his first attempts. Heartbreak sitting in the front row at his high school graduation, clapping louder than anyone, and now his sun is shining bright. As the baby was packing up to start a new life, Owen cleared his throat and stepped away from the doorway. You sure you're excited for this? Finn zipped up a duffel bag and tossed it onto the pile. Yeah, Owen nodded slowly and asked, what about me? Do you really think I'm ready for this? Finn grinned, finally looking up, definitely not Owen, and let out a soft sound of joy. Chuckle rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, well, you're right. It's quite comfortable. Silence settled between them as Owen walked over to the bookshelf, gently running his fingers over the spines of old books. Finn's gaze wandered to a small framed photo on the shelf, one of the cherished pictures of Emma he had kept in the house. It was a simple photo, just her laughing, hair swept to one side. Her eyes crinkled in a delightful way that Owen's chest ached, but Finn followed his gaze with curiosity after a moment. He picked up the frame, gazing at it with a thoughtful expression. His voice was soft as he asked, do you? Owen swallowed the lump in his throat, feeling a mix of emotions. He had anticipated this question one day, and it was a moment filled with hope. He reached out, placing a hand on his son's shoulder and giving it a gentle squeeze, showing his support more than anything. Kid, you have no idea. Finn nodded, his grip tightening slightly around the frame with determination. Before placing it back on the shelf, thanks to Dad, Owen playfully ruffled his hair. Finn smirked, not completely ruining the moment. And Owen let out a joyful laugh, shaking with delight. His head. I had some doubts in the early years, but there was a solid stretch ahead, where I was sure I was going to surprise you. Finn shrugged. Yeah, I was a. Owen grinned, bringing a bit of mischief, while Finn rolled his eyes, yet couldn't help but smile inside. The night unfolded as the suitcases gradually filled, and the last-minute packing came together perfectly. Finally made their way downstairs. The penthouse was quiet, an opportunity for new beginnings. Owen had spent years building this home for them, shaping a life out of something he had once been terrified of. And now it was a beautiful reality, changing again. But before Finn could laugh, there was one last thing to do. Tradition, after all. Owen flipped on the kitchen lights, pulling out the usual ingredients as Finn groaned. Dad, it's like midnight. That sounds like a challenge. Owen replied with a smile, cracking an egg into a bowl for one last batch before you go. Bringing a touch of humor to the moment, I let out a dramatic sigh, but I picked up the mixing bowl anyway. All right, let's do this. Or challenging? I'm pointing fingers at you, Owen. It's quite daring of you to think they won't. They stood side by side just like they had every Christmas, creating a beautiful moment together. The same Santa-shaped pancakes they had been making for years, bringing a delightful mess as always. Flow on the counter, batter splattered on the stove, and Owen flipped a pancake too. With a burst of energy, it soared to the floor, and Finn's laughter filled the air as he nearly lost his grip. His plate, and for a little while they were simply enjoying each other's company. Embracing the moment as father and son. My son and I had a delightful time making a mess of the kitchen together, especially when we enjoyed the last pancake. After washing the plates and wiping down the counters, Owen happily walked Finn back to his room and tucked him in with care. Last time, he realized Finn had outgrown it, but this time, as Owen. There's a sense of excitement for what's ahead. Pulled up the blankets, Finn simply blinked up at him, a quiet acceptance in his eyes. Voice gentler than before, you're going to be just fine, right? Owen released a slow breath. He had asked himself that same question 100 times, and while he still wasn't sure, he remained hopeful. He always believed this was the purpose behind raising Finn, to nurture his strength, to instill confidence, and to prepare him to embrace the world with open arms. With confidence, and he sensed that Finn was prepared, he managed a small smile, brushing a stray curl from his son's forehead brought a smile. Yeah, buddy, he said, as Finn gave a sleepy nod. Love you, Dad. Owen swallowed hard. Love you too, kid, he said as he turned off the light. Filled the space as he stepped into the hallway, pausing for a moment to glance back one last time. Finn was already asleep, and Owen lingered, allowing the moment to fill his heart with warmth. The house would feel emptier without him. But it was truly full of warmth and memories. Of memories brimming with love, filled with a life he had created from the ashes of what he once believed was impossible. Gazed at the framed photo of Emma on the wall, the one Finn had lovingly placed there himself. I know you would be. he murmured proudly as snow fell gently against the city skyline inside. Owen stood in the cozy warmth of his home, filled with the comforting thought that no matter where Finn ventured, he would always be there, waiting with open arms. To come back and for the first time embrace what was next. I can't wait for you to experience this. If you enjoyed the story, please consider leaving a like. It truly makes a difference. Check out the channel, and if you're excited for more heartwarming and emotional stories like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for notifications so you can catch every upload. I'm eager to hear your thoughts in the comments about this one. Story, thank you for your reactions. I appreciate you watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next.